paradigm leap in terms of technology and in terms of what you're trying to do. Do you view this as the future of cinema? Is that part of the goal of creating something like this?
It's pretty obvious to me. One of the future. It's just, I have no interest in technology, but it just, since I did Pi, it seems that's what digital cinema wants to do. First of all, it allows to be dimensionalized, like RIC, instead of a film that you cannot put the two dots together and do it well. And then once you put that together, I noticed that the frame rate doesn't work, and I never questioned 24 frames. Like, of course, movies 24 frames. If you have stroke, then we'll deal with the stroke. Don't pan too fast. Do things to accommodate that is always how a movie is. It's flat, so you create dimension, you throw those lines, it has flicks, the actor do the thing, you do movie magic, and they create great art from that. It's a great art form, but it seems like digital wants to do that. And as I get into it, I realize performance has to change. Those faces are just craving for more information. I want to look into them. So one thing leads to the next. This seems to be a very logical steps for me. I think it's just a media. It is what it is. It can do anything if you know how to do it. It's just like, thank God there's a great excuse to do that. You have a battling soldier and a halftime show next to each other. That's a great excuse to experiment on that and see how it goes. I think it takes a big step to make the point. Baby step is very, very difficult. It's just like, whatever. I spent about a year trying to decide whether psychologically I still stay in the movie land, which is about 60 frames. Suddenly you're watching a movie and go beyond to the next level. So I decided this is what I wanted to do. It's very difficult. We don't really know how to make that movie. We just try to catch what it needs, basically. Survive, like those soldiers in the trench and in the battlefield, very much so. And those are my comrades.
All in it together, and that includes, of course, your lead, Joe. And this is, as you all know, I believe this is Joe's feature film debut, and it's a hell of a thing to start in an Ang Lee film, much less a film, again, as innovative as this. Yeah. In the case for you, was it kind of like ignorance is bliss, almost like, oh, I don't know any better, this is my first film set, what's odd or different than this? I mean, when did you kind of realize that this wasn't the norm that apparent from the start for you?
When I was auditioning, I don't think you told me at first about the new way of doing it, and when you did begin explaining it, I just didn't fully understand, because I just didn't fully understand then and there. But when we started, I'd never made a film before, obviously, so I had no reference and nothing to hold on to. I didn't have a wealth of a career behind me, and so in some ways I had nothing to unlearn coming onto it, and I could tell that it wasn't the norm, and that these huge cameras that were centimeters away from your face, it wasn't a normal thing, but I knew nothing else. Whereas for other people coming on board, it was probably stranger because it was so different to however many movies they'd made before. But still, there were things that were unusual, and we were talking about it before, but you might shoot like a master shot, but as the camera comes closer, the eye contact is broken with the other actor, and you end up looking at pieces of tape around the black matte box rather than being able to share eye contact. And it was unusual, and it took time to get used to, but definitely ignorance as well.
For you, Ben, seeing your book rather, realized in this way, when you saw the finished product, do you recognize your work in this? Do you see this as a separate entity? Do you see this as something that feels authentic to your initial vision? And does the way that Ang approached this feel true to what you were striving to do in the book?
I feel like the movie stayed absolutely true to the spirit of the book in terms of exploring that gap between reality and fantasy, which is as wide as the Grand Canyon, a continental-wide Grand Canyon in American life. One thing that really pleased me about the movie, and it's carried over in discussions today, verbally and in the press, is, we get into these issues of what's fake and what's real. what's true and what's false. And there's a point in the book where Billy is thinking about the news footage that made him famous. And he's thinking about the fact that the news footage looks so fake. And he starts thinking about the Hollywood movie that might get made about the Bravos. And he's thinking, well, maybe that's what it takes to make it look real, the fake. And he starts thinking, well, how much faking does it take to make the fake look real? And what does it mean when only the fake looks real and the real looks fake? I think we start to lose our way. And so, in a very perverse way, it pleases me that not only did Ang capture the spirit of the book in the movie, but it's kind of overflowed the boundaries of the movie. And I think, what does that say about, human consciousness, that the real looks fake and the fake looks real? And, so I think, his movie bust open all those questions. And, does American, film criticism have the intellectual chops to start dealing with this?
I say they do.
Drop the mic that early in a press conference. Kristen, for you, you play Catherine, who, I don't know. You tell me, how do you view her? Do you view her as, she's kind of the most overtly anti-war character in the film. She espouses those views. Is she, in a sense, the conscience of the film? Is she, how do you view her function in this story?
Okay, so I think I was a lot younger when this all went down, and I think that I share a really generalized, sort of remote relationship to it that most of the people my age do, unless you've had a family member serve, or unless you've become fanatically, not fanatically, but unless you become sort of like fervently involved politically, which, to be honest, like my generation has very little to do with. And what I found the most interesting about this was just that you have somebody who is like kind of quick, like essentially a pacifist, but is not overtly. First of all, she never describes in the film. She never describes her like liberalism in more words than anything that doesn't sound completely like humanitarian, and that doesn't just sound like somebody who's provoking somebody or really requiring them to think for themselves, and like acknowledging a massive gap between herself and somebody that she's known intimately her whole life and now could never hold as close as she has, because they're now different. They're different beings. I mean, that experience changes someone to an extent that you can't hold them as close enough as you'd like to love them as much as you want to. And I think what she's doing, which is like a pretty topical, like it's good timing. It's fucking perfectly appropriate timing to be like, well, have you like actually considered the fact that these inexplicable pieces are affecting us, and you're my brother, and you're so inside of something that you haven't ever been given the opportunity to understand, and is that fair, and can you be proud of that? And that's a first person situation. Now take all of us out of it. Like, I have so much more distance than somebody who may have served does, yet I still have that same feeling. It's like, can I own my feelings, because do I really understand it? And so, like, I don't think that she's just like completely left wing, like, oh, anti-war. It's just that it's like, well, let's just understand what we're fighting for. And I think that she worries for, and this is a personal thing, but she worries for him. It's like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen when your training like fades, and all of those like mechanical default responses fade, and then you become a human being that doesn't know how to contend with what happened. And then like further than that, like, how do we contend with putting those people there? It's like, that's hard. It's really hard, and it's not something that anyone has done yet, really. So like, yeah, she's kind of like the epitome of question, rather than opinion, which I think is pretty cool.
One of the things that I've been obsessed with about this film since it was announced is kind of spoken to through the panel that we see here today, the eclectic cast that you have assembled in this fantastic cast, including Vin Diesel also, who's not here, but is obviously very present in the film. For you, Chris, to be a part of something like this, which is obviously much different than any kind of thing we've seen on the filmography thus far, and to be in the company of these actors and play many scenes opposite Mr. Steve Martin, did this feel like a moment, a step for you in your acting career? Did this feel like a different kind of an experience compared to past experiences?
Yes, working with Aang was just a great experience, and that's one of my career goals is to work with great directors because they bring together great casts, and it just only enhances you, and it was just a great experience.
For in seeing the film, it's clearly, and you kind of just spoke to this, Kristen, but also in seeing the film, the camaraderie, whether it's brother and sister or among the soldiers, it's truly about love and comradeship. And for you, Garrett, I'm sure that's a key component of your character in approaching it. Can you talk to me a little bit about sort of the importance of establishing that relationship with this core group of guys and how you approach that?
Well, Joe would like to chat with me about this. Everybody went through a boot camp, which consisted of the Navy SEALs, a guy by the name of Master Chief Hoffman and Instructor Bram, sort of running everybody through one of the most intense situations in my life. And Joe would say the same. He did a week before I did, and I got there a week later, it was a week of 8-mile rock pack runs, holding a telephone pole over the shoulders, doing bay and port side. A lot of stuff, and having to wake up at 2 a.m. and do crazy things. And I know Aang was really nervous about this because he had a lot of riding on that. But it was powerful, and the guys that put us through this situation, Master Chief Hoffman and Bram and everybody, they kicked our ass, and everybody that got their ass kicked was deserving of it, and it, I think, really, made a difference and showed them in character, and everybody was sad they didn't have their phone for their tweets and for Twitter and all their friends on MySpace and Facebook and whatever. I don't know, I've never been on. But
You dated yourself, Garrett, MySpace.
but they were they benefited from it.
Yeah.
And it was a character altering thing that I think everybody was appreciative of. And that's all because Aang.
For